Hi, welcome to Let Them Talk. And you can see right now we're perched high above New York City on a tall skyscraper in Brooklyn Heights that, of course, doesn't really exist. It just has that, it gives that illusion, doesn't it? But the buildings behind us, one of them exists, the one on the far left behind my shoulder, my right shoulder, it does exist. I believe that's the tall one they already built. But the ones behind my guests and behind those tall ones, though, they don't exist yet, thanks to my guests, in large part, who are doing everything in their power to keep them from building those horrific towers that would totally change this beautiful, old, historic neighborhood of New York City into something that was not really community. You know, it would be something else. It'd be like an investment opportunity for foreign oil magnates and things like that. But anyway, to learn more about it and the good news, as well as the struggle ahead, are my guests, Zishun Ning, right, and Stephanie Crane, right, from the Chinatown Working Group and other groups involved in the fight against these mega towers. And you won. One of the reasons you're here is that you won a recent court victory, a major court victory, which was totally unexpected because people were saying to me, oh, this will be impossible. You'll never. They're even still saying it. Oh, they'll just appeal it. Oh, these kind of things, right? But for all the naysayers out there who say that you can't beat City Hall, meet the people who laugh in the face of City Hall and beat City Hall, hands down. The new generation, the new Jane Jacobs of our world, who are going to. Jane Jacobs was famous for stopping this horrific thing that Robert Moses wanted to build that would have totally destroyed the neighborhood. You guys are definitely carrying her spirit and her struggle into another generation, into another century. Thank goodness for you. So tell us, what is it that happened that's so good, and then we'll talk about what this project really means and what it's all about. But first, what happened in court?
What happened in court?
What happened in court, Stephanie?
What happened in court didn't happen in just inside court in a vacuum, like in a legal vacuum. The Coalition to Protect Chinatown in the Lower East Side had created this petition where community members could sign saying they oppose the towers, and they also want to pass a rezoning plan, which we could talk about later. But so thousands of people signed, almost 6,000 people signed the petition demanding that the city, not allow these towers to go forward. And so it was all of the pressure that people, across New York City, even people outside New York City signed it, saying, that this is a monstrosity. This would destroy our community. This is not what the city should be doing. Enriching developers, displacing people. So, when the judge saw that, the judge is part of the public, and he's affected by public opinion and what people are demanding. So,
sure.
And he saw the community's perspective clearly, that the developers and the city were violating the city's own zoning law to put the towers up.
And we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
So, and he did rule. What did his ruling actually say?
That these towers, but not only these towers, anything in the LSRD, the large-scale residential development, that's the zoning, the underlying zoning of the area, nothing could be built there that would damage the environment, that would block air and sunlight and change the character of the community.
So he gave you even more than you wanted.
Yeah, it was precedent-setting in that way. It was making official what we had known, what the community had known all along, but codifying it in a way, saying that nothing can be built that harms the neighborhood. So
right.
It's what the law was designed to do, but the city tried to break it, and so the community shut it down.
Where does it go now legally? Is the city going to appeal? I imagine it's the city or the developers who are appealing.
The city is letting the developers do their dirty work for them. The developers are the ones appealing. So the city's hoping that probably that the developers win on appeal.
So it's going to the state Supreme Court now?
It's been in the
It's
state
been-
Supreme Court, so
So-
that's the where we won, right?
Oh.
And then if they appeal, it will be in the appellate court.
The appellate court. New York has a strange way of doing things. That's true. The courts have different names. You never
Yeah.
know what's Supreme Court's lower than the appellate court, right? Exactly. So it goes down to the appellate, but they're not exactly friends of the people. The appellate court. I mean, I've always had problems there. You know, we've reversed in my part of the neighborhood in the Lower East Side, East Village area. I hate calling it that, but we have to. We're talking about the larger scale Lower East Side. As people can see how big the Lower East Side is, right? It's made of different parts. Like we're looking at two bridges between right behind us, between the Brooklyn Bridge and the Manhattan Bridge. Further to the right, you can see the Williamsburg Bridge and the co-ops and housing projects that are past what they call Corlear's Hook, which is on the far right behind Stephanie, and then turns to the northeast and behind her, and you can see the power plant in the far distance. That's up by where I am. So we call the area by me East Village, which I never used to call it, but just for ease of description, it's a separate part of the Lower East Side, but we're all part of the same neighborhood and are unified in many ways, and face a lot of the same struggles, you know, ultimately, developers moving in. So that said, what exactly, so this is an assault not just on the Two Bridges neighborhood, on Chinatown, which is right behind it, for people who don't know, but for the whole, as you see how low it is, the housing, and look to the left, how tall it is, right, the housing, right? Now look at our neighborhood, how low the housing is. We have still a residential, traditional New York residential neighborhood of low buildings, you know, not very much, not like you see in the back, or in this neighborhood where we are right now, near M&N, where they have 90 and 100-story sliver towers that look frightening, actually. They might fall over or something, right? And that's what they want to do. You can see what they wanted to build, the same thing, right, over here. Okay, so what exactly was the plan? What was this, and how did they try and get it through? I find that interesting, how they tried to find a loophole in the law to force through the development of these tall buildings.
Mm-hmm. Well, what they claim, right, what the city tried to claim is that these towers are of right. That means that there's no, regulation on it. It's just the underlying zoning, which, as they claim, will allow as tall as can build as possible. But these towers actually fall into what Steph mentioned earlier, the large-scale residential development. That will have specific guideline that said any new developments cannot, destroy the neighborhood character and affect the environment of the surrounding area. So these towers, as you can see, in the picture, right? Mm-hmm. At least 60 stories tall, each of them. And as you can see around the neighborhood, right? How which building, right? Except the one who is which is already been built. That the other ones at most is like 20 some stories.
The one behind me, you can see, is one already been built, right? I think that's the one behind my shoulder here. You can see it here. This is the one that's already been built, or is it?
Yeah, it's already been built.
That's the one that's already been built. Yeah. Right, and it's already totally over. First of all, they took out a beloved supermarket that had been there forever, so people now don't have a supermarket.
Pathmark.
Pathmark was there, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the effect, immediate effect. These others, how many people would they have brought into the neighborhood? Like, how many residents would have been in these buildings if they were all filled with apartments?
I think there would be more than 2,000 luxury units in these 4 towers.
Right. Oh my God. So that's like, let's say 4 people per unit. That's 8,000 new people, 5,000 to 8,000 or more new people. Mm-hmm. And how many subway stations are around there? I know.
It's one, right?
One. There's one race, right? The East Broadway race. So one small station, right? Mm-hmm. And so people would have been rushing for that station every day, mm-hmm. packed, falling off the platform because they couldn't fit on the platform.
Mm-hmm. But I think more important is that these luxury units gonna drive up the real estate tax and the rents of mm-hmm. the surrounding area because making the whole area more expensive. So it's becoming more unaffordable for many of the tenants, low-income families around the area, small business.
You find like more upscale restaurants, and everything would be upper scale. Uh-huh. It would change the whole character of the type of stores there, the restaurants there, the bars, everything, all the things that are the social watering holes of society would be changed into a whole different sort of mahogany bar thing, $14 for a drink. You know, all of a sudden, you know, you sit down for dinner and it's $60. It's changed a lot.
And not to mention, like, you know, the first tower, the Excel Tower that, you know, that's already been up. During the construction, there's a lot of damage to the buildings next to it. You know, it caused a lot of like infrastructure damage, caused a lot of like cracks in the wall, water main break, you know, things like that. So, and then they also affect the air quality, right, because of the construction and the noise and all of that. So you can imagine, like, you know, 4 more, you know, towers, similar size or even bigger size, is to come up right next to the building, right next to their building.
Right, and they actually fit. Where do they fit them into? Like this, they're saying they're not taking down the NYCHA buildings and the co-ops that are there. Instead, what they were going to do is infill. I guess that's the official word for it, right?
That's another project, right? Across the street. So the 2 bridges is they're not NYCHA, but they have like the other programs like Section A, rent stabilization, you know, those units. But then one
lower income, I'm talking about middle and lower income.
Middle and low income. And then one building will be built on top of a senior building. The senior building is like 10 floors, right?
So it'll be one of those weird buildings that are like this. I just saw one like that today. Like the building goes up and then like this and then goes up the rest of the way.
Yeah, and it's not only 10 floors, it's like 80 floors.
80 floors.
80 floors on top of
80 floors. So you look up, oh my God.
Yeah.
So this is totally different, changing the whole culture in neighborhood. So what, you had to fight against the government to fight this. I mean, the government was your enemy in all of this, even though they let the real estate developers. Did you ever find out if Kushner family or Kushner was involved in that, in any of this construction? Everybody always asked me, and I said I'd love to find out. Like, I believe they probably do have investment in it, but to actually find the paperwork with the signature would be great. Right? Then you could really hold that out like a hairy shirt. That said, your city council person is Margaret Chin, right? And it's somebody I've known forever. I've known Margaret Chin forever. I mean, not personally, but I know her politically. Before she was a city council person, she was a radical. She was like Asian Americans for Equality, and before that, she was in some radical communist group. I mean, I always knew her as sort of a frontline fighter against, you know, right wing and fascism, a person of the people. What happened to her? What happened to Margaret Chin? Or did I have her wrong from the beginning?
So Margaret Chin, as you said, right, used to be working as an executive director for Asian Americans for Equality, which now actually turned into a landlord, you know, managing
I know.
you know, themselves.
We go off the subject now. I can tell you stories.
Yeah. So, but then, you know, she already like in that kind of mode, right? Okay, then we need the developments, right?
Yeah.
But then, you know, maybe get a little bit of affordable units. And then she also, you know, trying to play the identity politics, right? Because before, you know, you have the white council member, and now, you know, she said, oh, you know, you should get the Asian and woman, you know, into office. Actually, that gets worse because before people would say, oh, you know, you're just working with big developers, you know, or white people, or whatever. Right. But now it's an Asian woman.
Right. Then people say, what? Did you people don't get enough? You know.
Yeah. So she played that role.
Yeah.
And then actually also helped the city pit one group against the other in Chinatown and the Lower East Side. And even like to try to like you know, being racist to her own folks because you know, to give you a little bit of history, right? In 2008, the city approved the East Village rezoning that would protect what was already the white middle class neighborhood from luxury high rises. But as you said earlier, right? You know, Chinatown, Lower East Side, East Village, we're the same community. But they just protect the white middle class area, but not the Chinatown and the Lower East Side. At that time, her group, the Asian American for Equality, already, you know, support, you know, the East Village rezoning. At that time, people already rally against this plan, saying, you know, it's racist, it's exclusion, you know, exclude the Chinese, blacks, Latinos. So under the pressure, Bloomberg came up and said, okay, then you guys should have your own protective rezoning. So that's where when the Chinatown Working Group was founded, and then more than 60 organizations were part of it. So all through these years, we able to develop a plan that will pretty much demand the same protection as East Village. You know, we put high limits on any new developments, so that no luxury high-rises will be able to come in.
So you're talking about the zoning, for example, in my part of it, they put the zoning in place that there's no high-rise construction off of the avenues. So Houston Street, they're putting giant things. They're putting Tech Hub on 14th Street and new L train. But supposedly, on the side streets, 12th Street, 11th Street, 10th, 9th, they're not going to put anything. They're going to ban. So that was significant change because they wanted to put gigantic buildings there forever. But you're saying that that's because that part of the neighborhood was privileged.
Well, because that's how the city try to pit one group against the other, right? To try to pit the white middle class against, communities of color.
Right.
So in the end, nobody wins here, because they can say, then there's no unity, among the neighborhood. So when it comes to us, right, can we expect them to come? They already got their protection, that kind of thing. So instead of getting the whole community, protected. And that's actually the gimmick that the city wants to do with the Chinatown Working Group plan as well, because the plan we fight for is to cover the whole Chinatown and the Lower East Side. So when we present this plan to Mayor de Blasio,
tell us a little bit about the plan.
So the plan calls for high limits on the whole area, and then it also discourage the privatization of nature. Because as you mentioned earlier, they want to do the infill, which is to get the market rate units to be built, on the public land. And we say that according to the plan, that any new development on public land should be 100% low income, for the people with the income level of the community. And they also mandate that any new development to have truly affordable housing. That looks to that's based on the local area median income.
Sure.
So this is the gist of the
local
of the
area median income. Now didn't they say that there was going to be in these towers and in the XL Tower there's going to be some percentage of people who are of moderate income or moderate means are going to get apartments?
Yeah, there were going to be a small percentage of units that were like quote unquote affordable, but affordable is based on the citywide area median income, so it's really inflated. It has the Westchester
County. What's the area median income mean? What does that mean? AMI.
The area median income. So it's the median income level of households across all 5 boroughs and three counties upstate. So it's quite high because it includes like Manhattan and Westchester. So it's based on a citywide AMI, the units wouldn't really be affordable to people in Lower East Side and Chinatown.
Right. Not the guys who are riding their bicycles around delivering food and stuff like that. They're not going to be buying places that have a $30,000 or $40,000, I think it is almost $40,000 area median income a year. That doesn't seem like a lot to some people, but to many of us, try making that. It's that's a lot of money to make. $800 a week is in a 40-hour week, and some people work 60 hours. They don't make anywhere near that, right? So they're gone. They're out. They're never going to be able to get places like that.
Yeah, and the Blasio try to encourage towers like this to come in. That drive up the rent and the real estate tax. So actually, people's income decrease in the end. Right, so and then the housing become more and more unaffordable. So actually, de Blasio is destroying more affordable housing that exists.
That already exists.
It already exists. So in the end, his affordable housing plan is actually anti-affordable housing plan.
Right. Well, that goes back to Robert Moses, even back to the 30s. That was the whole idea of urban renewal, is they would tear down all these buildings and build up new buildings, and none of the people who were in the buildings that were torn down ever got an apartment out of it. And then we found out later, why would we put poor housing back where we just ripped it up? No, we're going to put the poor housing up in the Bronx or out in East New York or someplace like that. So you're not going to, you thought you were cool, you were a poor person and you lived in Manhattan, now you're going to be living out in East New York.
Yeah, so
with the other poor people, right?
Yeah, so when what the plan trying to do is to preserve the existing affordable housing, right? Don't let these luxury high-rises come in to destroy them. And then
that's the Chinatown Working Group plan.
Yes.
So explain that plan a little bit to us. What does it mean? What would be the what does the plan say? And what kind of responses you've gotten from the city when you go to the community boards. Do you go to the community boards and ask them? What do they say?
Yeah, I think the community board 1, 2, and 3 at that time were all on board with this plan. So it was when we went to the Department of City Planning, which is under the Mayor de Blasio, that they say the plan is too ambitious. It's too far-fetched. And then we had a town hall meeting at that time, and then we invited Mayor de Blasio, and then he sent his representative come in and say the same thing. We think it's too ambitious. And then we were furious, right? Because this plan, like we said earlier, it's asking for the same protection as the East Village, right?
Yeah.
Why can East Village have it, but not us? Right?
Where they don't allow any tall buildings to go off of the main avenues. They just don't, right? So, but they want to build these as if it was, sort of an area of an expendable neighborhood. One of these neighborhoods where we can build anything we want there. Right?
Well, because the thing is that the Blasio reject the Chinatown Working Group plan. If the plan is there, then none of these buildings will come up.
That would be the response to that. So you got important support from this judge, but despite this legal hearing, there's appeals coming up. What happens next? I mean, do we have to just basically hope that the mayor doesn't get reelected, or?
Well, he's not going to get reelected, but I think the point right now is that people across the city have seen what the mayor is doing, right? It's like around 6 years, 7 years, that they have seen his true color, right? He brand himself as the progressive and
by the way, I don't
city,
trust term limits ever since Michael Bloomberg didn't get term
right.
limits. Term limits are an iffy thing. I don't know if you have to be a billionaire to get them thrown out, but they seem to be for some and not for others. With that said, go ahead.
But right now, what I was trying to say is that he doesn't have the support of the people. Right. Initially, he might hope to fool some people into believe that he's different from Bloomberg, but now he's totally even worse than Bloomberg because Bloomberg was blatant, right? And then he's more sneaky,
right?
And so under this kind of the political environment, that we're pretty hopeful, right? We're looking to the the election, the city hall election, coming up next year, and then
how about Margaret Chin?
Margaret Chin is also term limited.
She's term limited, so she's out too, right?
Yeah,
She can run for something else,
right? Or she can get someone else to run the position.
They get appointed usually. Antonio Pagan got appointed. He had a nice cushy job waiting for him when he was done. So they do the work of the mayor and the ruling class and the real estate interests, and even if they lose the election, they mysteriously get a wonderful job.
I think that's what
it comes out of it. Working for this department or that department that you never heard of.
But the point is the political, right? The platform. That are you really for the real estate or not? And I think
are you going to run Zishun Ning?
No,
City Council?
no.
That's not your style.
No,
you're too radical for that.
But
you never be able to make those compromises.
But I think the point is people don't like what the mayor is doing. People don't like what Margaret Chin is doing. So they expect the next city council person or the next mayor to be different, right? And I think this is a really good opportunity for people to really put demand on the next one. What they want, right? That if community, like Steph said earlier, we have thousands of people doing the signature, collecting signatures, and really, stand behind this Chinatown Working Group.
That was amazing. You got that many 6,000, of voting age people, basically. So that's maybe what in that neighborhood, in your neighborhood, that's maybe 40,000 people who are actually voting age, maybe 40 or 50,000. So you got like more than 10% of the people who live there to sign a petition. Most people, I'm surprised 10% knew it was happening. So that's pretty good right there. So that all said, so this is great. So it reminds me, because I know there was a victory recently also in Inwood, which had a similar massive rezoning forced down their throat by the city that was going to allow the developers to build on that windy, very old-timey neighborhood with the windy streets and the hills, and it's almost it's like a small town type of feel in parts of Inwood. And they would have wrecked that; it would have been totally destroyed, and those streets would have been obliterated, and they would have put these gigantic towers up there, right? And now that's not going to happen either, at least according to the most recent court decision. Are you in touch with the folks up there in Inwood? I mean, is there a citywide thing we can get going between the people who don't want the flood control project over there in the city in East River Park, like myself, or you guys want to try and stop these tall buildings, or the Inwood folks, and the folks even, it would cut across even class, because then you have, the bougie people in Brooklyn Heights, they were going to put a 6-lane highway right through their neighborhood, right through, and destroy the, right? So this is something that rich and poor could get together on in New York City to stop this crazed development.
Mm-hmm. We have been very, connected to the people in Inwood.
Yeah.
And they have been coming to our events, and then their victory we also see as our victory, because we have the same enemy, right? It's the city and Mayor de Blasio, and then that's how we try to bring folks citywide. And also things happen in Brooklyn, like the Sunset Park.
Yeah.
There's this big rezoning. Also, it's a private industry city.
Right.
So they want to bring in more like high-end
No more
shops.
poor neighborhoods in New York anymore,
Yeah,
right?
so
it doesn't matter. With the worst neighborhood when I was first moving to New York now is the toniest new neighborhood, right?
But now people put up a fight, right? And then I think more and more people are rising up.
Yeah.
And then also in Queens, you have Flushing. There's a rezoning, and then all across the 7 train, you've seen like neighborhood changing.
Right.
So people there also organizing.
Right.
So we are trying to bring in all these folks.
Didn't they get a big, even the place the kids had spray painted that the city ripped down without any warning, they won a huge suit. I just read, so I would know more about that. Right?
Yeah,
saying that was art, and that the city destroyed art without proper compensation for the artists. Right, so it's a huge amount of money actually. Right? So so there is but the courts, so it's got to be more than the courts. We can't rely on the courts because not every judge is cool or progressive. You're lucky you hit a few good ones.
Well,
I mean, you can't always decide that. Right, go ahead.
No, I mean even the judge during the back on June 5th. The judge looked around the room at one point and said, "Look at all the people who are here. This room is packed." And that makes an impression on a judge, because a judge is like not so different than anyone else. Like they're vulnerable to what the public thinks.
Right.
So it's the pressure that the communities, the citywide mounts, and I think that's how we've been able to sway the court. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, we're done now, so thanks a lot for joining us, Zishun Ning, Stephanie Crane. That was so interesting. We'll have to have you on to talk more, because obviously we barely scratched the surface of this very interesting subject about our city and its future. Thank you.